A mother of two, a wife, turned adulteress, and leading to a suicide? All new, never before seen footage. All this and more tonight on Dateline. Often, the most surprising stories come from the places we least expect them. Edna Pontellier, an adored wife, mother of two. What happened to this woman to cause her to leave her family? Why did she have so many lovers? What could have possibly led to her suicide? Let's look at the history. Pontellier lived in the quaint town of New Orleans with her husband Leonce and her two children. They were part of a prestigious Creole society. They were a very popular family. Leonce was a wealthy man and liked by many. Edna seemed to enjoy her life as a housewife. She cared for the children and put on a smile for her husband's peers. She was a happy, beautiful woman who seemed to be happy. But what was she hiding behind that smile?
It all started when we were on vacation. I had come back to the house after some gambling with the guys. Came back to Edna on the bed sleeping and told her about my day. She didn't seem the least bit interested. Then I asked her to care for one of our children who had a fever. She didn't even get up to help her own children.
Edna seemed to be rather disconnected from her children. They were more of a nuisance than anything to her. Madame Ratignolle, a woman Edna spent much of her time with, recounts a time when Edna told her, "I would never sacrifice my life for my children, or for anyone."
It was just a normal dinner after coming home from vacation. I remember we had soup that night. We usually would get visitors every Tuesday, except this Tuesday she told me she had gone out and completely ignored her responsibilities of tending to her visitors. We got in a very large argument, and I left the house and she stormed upstairs.
Edna then proceeded to take off her wedding ring, stomp on it, and then break a nearby vase. Leonce and Edna ended their marriage when Edna went off on her own. She bought a small cottage where she practiced the arts she enjoyed. She kept herself busy with painting, piano, and most of all, men. One of those men being her lover, Robert. I met with Robert for an exclusive interview. Tell me about your relationship with Edna.
Well, it all started on Grand Isle, where Edna and her family vacation every year. I'm usually very flirtatious with the women who vacation there in the summer. I began flirting with Edna and we began to spend more and more time together. I even taught her to swim, which she really enjoyed. Her husband was never around much, so I kept her company. When I found myself growing too fond of her, I knew I had to leave, so I fled to Mexico.
And how did she feel about that?
She was very upset with me. She asked me not to part from her. She said, "Can't you understand? I've grown used to seeing you, to having you with me all the time, and your action seems unfriendly, even unkind. You don't even offer an excuse for it."
Leonce tells us that he once asked Edna after Robert left, "How do you get on without him, Edna?" To which she replied, "It is very dull without him." Robert wasn't the only one that Edna had relations with. While living in the cottage, she had an affair with a man named Alcier Robin, or something, who she was never emotionally attached to. While living alone, she spent much of her time with an old pianist, Mademoiselle Rice, who adopts Edna as sort of a protege. Edna is moved by Mademoiselle's piano playing and eager to read the letters from abroad that Robert sends the woman. A woman who devotes her life entirely to her art, Mademoiselle serves as an inspiration and model to Edna, who continues her process of awakening and independence. Robert returns from New Orleans to profess his love, but can never get over the fact that Edna is a married woman. Our story takes place in New Orleans in the late 1800s. This was a hard time for women. Society saw women only to be in certain roles. Women were thought to be a possession of the man. Edna could try, but in a conservative society, she could never gain true independence. Robert and Edna are in an argument over the relationship, but Edna leaves to help her dear friend Adele with a difficult childbirth.
Edna and I were very different. I was the perfect housewife. I loved to care for my children and be a wife. Edna was always a little different in our town. She enjoyed painting and hanging around that old woman who likes to play the piano. She never really liked looking after the kids. That's why when Edna went off on her own, I wasn't really surprised.
And the return to find Robert gone and nothing in his place but with a note reading,
Goodbye, because I love you.
Robert's inability to escape the ties of society now prompts Edna's most devastating awakening. Haunted by the thoughts of her children and realizing that she would have eventually found even Robert unable to fulfill her desires and dreams, Edna is alone in a world in which she has found no feeling of belonging. She can only find one answer to the inescapable and heartbreaking limitations of society. She returns to Grand Isle, the site of her first moments of emotional, sexual, and intellectual awareness, and, in a final escape, jumps into the sea and drowns. Thank you for joining me tonight. From NBC News, this is Dateline.